Hello everyone, welcome to another Snapcraft Live, and welcome to all the people sat in the chat who are asking questions and welcoming everyone else to the chat. I'm Alan, and I'll be with you for the next hour or so for another Snapcraft Live. If this is your first one, then you might want to go back and look at some of the previous Snapcraft Lives we've done. This is the fourth one so far over the last 4 weeks. And the idea is to bootstrap developers to get you going building snaps. And hopefully over the last few weeks we've covered the basics of getting you to a point where you can have the environment set up, build a snap and push it to the store. And we're going to take a little bit further this week with some additional tips for automating builds and building for other architectures. That's the goal what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to build on what we did over the previous few weeks. We're going to introduce some new commands and some new tools that you can use. Hopefully it'll all work. The demo gods will be happy, and my son next door playing Fortnite or Apex Legends or whatever won't eat up all the bandwidth, and hopefully my picture won't break up too badly. Do let me know. So apparently my audio sounds a bit odd. Left channel only. Oh dear. And lower than normal. Should I turn it up a little bit? I can turn it up a bit. Let me bear with me just for a moment. I'm on a different machine than I was on last week. I don't understand why it's all in one channel. This is actually a mono microphone, but I don't know why it would. I don't understand why this is not working very well. Volume, percentage, down mix to mono. There we go. Bop, that's the button I wanted to press. There we go. Bit strange. Hopefully that fixed things a little bit. Do let me know. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Let me know if that's helped a little bit. Hopefully it's a little bit higher now. Yes, everyone throwing comments about the various audio technologies I'm using. I do apologise. Good. Okay, so hopefully with that all out of the way, let's get stuck in. Now, before I start, there's a couple of things I wanted to show you. One is we're always looking at ways to improve this, audio being one way. And one of the ways we want to improve things is, as well as these long, lengthy videos that cover a lot of topics in detail, we're thinking about doing some shorter ones as well, things that are a little bit more snappy and can be easily shared and more bite-sized, that kind of stuff. And I'm keen to know what kind of bite-sized things people want to know about. You know, what kind of things did you get stuck on along the way? What problems have you had? And maybe we can turn those into short bite-sized videos. So I started a thread over on the Snapcraft forum, and if you sign up there, you can leave a comment in there. It's all explained in that thread. Just go searching for the Snapcraft Live video suggestions thread, and in there basically I'm just asking for suggestions on how we can improve this thing. I'll make a note, audio quality one of them, and so yeah, just reply in there or leave a comment under this video. We'll find it. We read all your comments. There aren't so many of them, you know, we're not PewDiePie. There aren't so many of them that we can't read them all. So we will. So as usual, let's dive into this week's video, and then let me highlight the thing that we're going to talk about this week. So remember last week we built a snap of an awesome application which was called Word Salad, and we uploaded Word Salad from the store. I built it on my laptop. What we want to look at now is automating builds and building for multiple architectures. And I'll tell you why we need to do that. Let's go back to the store page for Word Salad. So here's the store page. You can view this page yourself, snapcraft.io/word-salad. It's a simple application. For those who weren't here last week, it's just a simple password generator, and really is very simple. It just bolts a couple of words together, throws a number and a special character in there, and you've got a password, and it just generates random passwords. It's very, very simple. Now, I built this on my laptop last week when we were filming in Malta, and if you look in the store up here, you can see the latest stable release, and we've got a version in the stable channel that was published a week ago today. But you'll notice up here where it says show architecture, you'll see it says AMD 64. So currently the only build of word salad in the store is built for 64-bit Intel machines. So if you're actually on a Raspberry Pi, or if you're on a 32-bit Intel machine, or some other ARM device, or some other non-AMD 64 architecture, then if you try and install word salad, it won't find it. So when you're trying to install applications, it filters out those architectures that are not the one you're currently running. And that's intentional, because if there's no build of the application in the store for your architecture, there's no point showing it to you. You can see them from here. So for example, if I go to what application is built for all architectures, let's go to snapcraft.io/offline on app, which is one that has built recently. So this one, you'll notice in the show architecture, there's lots of architectures. So that's the ultimate goal we want to get to here, is be able to have multiple architecture builds of our application in the store, so that people on Raspberry Pis or 32-bit machines or S390X mainframes, or I don't know, PowerPC machines, I mean those are a little bit unlikely, but certainly ARM machines and 32-bit Intel is not necessarily a ludicrous suggestion. So that's the goal. Now, there's a few ways we could do this. I'll show you one way straight away, and we'll look at automating as a next step a little bit later, but let's look at building on other architectures. So in my terminal here, I've got everything we did last week. So I've got the word salad actual shell script, because word salad is just a bash script, and the what else is in here? The Snapcraft YAML. For those pointing out my voice is a bit lower, it's because I've got a different microphone. I had another microphone in Malta. Actually, on that subject, hey Martin, who I know, some of my colleagues are in the chat as well. We should make some kind of EQ thing so that we can fiddle the EQ. That would be really good. Yeah, come back to that another day. That might be a future video. There's also the Snapcraft YAML. So we've got shell script, which is word salad, and we've got a Snapcraft YAML. And the Snapcraft YAML is really, really simple. Now, there's nothing architecture specific about this. It's a shell script, and the YAML doesn't pull in any additional external binaries that are platform specific. So I could do the same thing on a Raspberry Pi. So let's do that. Let's jump over to a Raspberry Pi. If I SSH to another machine I have on my network, which happens to be a Raspberry Pi. In fact, I can show it to you here. Oh, as long as the power cable doesn't fall out while I'm lifting it up. So I don't know if you can see this. This is a Raspberry Pi, a relatively new Raspberry Pi, and it's plugged into my network. So I've just SSH'd into that Raspberry Pi. Now I've already copied that same directory over onto this machine. So I've got a my snapped word salad here, and again it's the same shell script, and the YAML is the same, and I can build it on this machine, on an ARM machine. Now on my laptop, when I did this, I built a AMD 64 snap that I pushed to the store. If I build on this machine, I'll get an ARMHF build of word salad. However, you may remember back when we started doing this, I said you install Snapcraft and you install multipass. We did that a few weeks ago, and if I show you a reminder down here, here's the reminder of the setup that we did. And you'll notice we installed Snapcraft and multipass. Snapcraft is the tool we use to build the snap, and multipass is a virtual machine manager. Now, multipass currently only works on AMD 64 architecture. You can actually get it to run i386 VMs, but it's a little bit clumsy at the moment. But it doesn't work on a Raspberry Pi. And so, how do we build this thing on a Raspberry Pi when there's no multipass? well, there's a special option we now have in Snapcraft, and the special option is it's only recently landed in Snapcraft. And what you do is you do Snapcraft. Crikey, I've forgotten what it is. That's it. Destructive mode. Now, I'm going to run this and tell you what it does. So I'm running Snapcraft on my Raspberry Pi, and I'm going to run it with this special destructive mode. Hopefully when it starts. Now, it's a Raspberry Pi, so it's a little bit slow. There we go. Now, what this is it allows you to run Snapcraft and do the build on the local machine. It won't spin up a VM, there's no containers involved. It's building it directly on the host. And this is great, and there are some pitfalls with it. It's great because it means I can build directly on this machine, not having to spin up any VMs, not having to create any containers, not having to worry about additional infrastructure. I can just build directly on this machine. And I could run Snapcraft destructive mode on my laptop as well. And it would not create a multipass container. It would just build directly on my laptop. And that's great, but the big problem is if you run destructive mode, you're running natively on the machine. You're using whatever compiler is on the machine and the linker that's on this machine and whatever PPAs are enabled or third-party repositories. You might be pulling in libraries from places that you didn't realize into the build of that snap. And the resulting snap may well work on this machine, but it may not work on another machine. So for example, if I had an Ubuntu 18.10 machine or an Ubuntu 19.04 machine and I ran Snapcraft destructive mode, it might depend then on a newer version of libc that's in 18.10 or 19.04. And while that snap would work on 18.10 or 19.04 and may work on future versions of Ubuntu, it may not work going backwards. The whole premise for snaps is you build one snap that works everywhere. And so it's critically important that you understand that destructive mode is an option that's very useful, but it's not really the everyday option for a developer building on their laptop, because you may build unrunnable snaps. So with that caution, what's the good news? Well, the good news is this is really useful if you're building in a short-lived machine. So for example, what if you wanted to automate your builds in something like Travis or Circle CI or some other continuous integration system, or your own continuous integration system, maybe use Jenkins or something like that. And if you're running that on an Ubuntu 18.04 host and you run Snapcraft destructive mode, or you're in a container on that host and you run destructive mode, then you can be sure that you control the environment in which that runs, and so you won't be in danger of building it on 18.10 or 19.04 or some other weird release. So that's where it's useful, is building a throwaway machine like a CI cloud instance or something that gets spun up to build your application and then thrown away at the end. Okay, so it is useful, and I'm using it here as a workaround because multipass isn't available for the Pi. But that's got that out of the way. So that's the special secret parameter for Snapcraft. Now, it has worked, and it has built word salad, an ARMHF build. Now you'll notice here the architecture is encoded in the file name. If I snap install word salad on my Raspberry Pi, which, remember, I have to use the --dangerous command because I built the thing locally. It hasn't been checked by the store, so I have to use dangerous to say, well, this could be a dangerous snap. We've got no idea what's in it. Someone may have given it to me on a USB key or something. So it's now installed the snap of word salad. If I go snap run word salad, it gives me a password. You can just run word salad because we did expose the app word salad to the outside world, so I can just run word salad, and there we go, same thing. It works perfectly. So that's another way. That's one way I could build on another architecture, is have another machine of that architecture. But this is not great because there's some disadvantages to doing this as well. Building on a Raspberry Pi can be slow, and And I say Raspberry Pi, I mean generically ARM device. Building on this ARM device can be slow. This is not the most powerful computer in the world. Now, of course, my Snap in this case is just a bash shell script, and so it builds really fast because there's nothing to it. I mean, look at the size of the Snap. It's 4K in size. There's nothing in it. But if this was more complicated, maybe the Snap had some C++ with a bunch of libraries. Maybe it pulls in a bit of Qt and some of the other libraries, maybe it's a desktop application, then it will take a little bit longer on a Pi. And so this isn't ideal for the everyday developer. It might be okay for the one-off and iterating on your build, but what you probably want to do is build it on someone else's machine, basically. And the good news is that Canonical provides a build service, so you don't have to build on your own local machine. That build service I'll show you is that right? Yes, it is. You'll find if you go to Snapcraft.io and just hit build at the top. Now, this build service is great for developers of open source applications because this can hook up to your GitHub repo where your code lives and then automatically build whenever your source code changes. So if you're a developer and you're iterating on your code a lot and you're making lots of changes, then this build service can automatically build a Snap every time you make a change in GitHub and then push it to the store immediately. And it will do that for multiple architectures. So all the architectures you saw of the offline IMAP Snap that I showed you earlier are all supported by the build service. Now, this isn't for everyone. Some companies prefer to keep all their build systems in-house. There are plenty of Snaps in the store that are built on premises, but this is just an option that you can use if you're a free software developer and you want to build your application and publish it to the store nice and easily. This is an option for you. And so I'm going to go through how you do this. It's pretty straightforward, but at the moment your code needs to be on GitHub. If your code lives somewhere else, like GitLab or Bitbucket or somewhere else, there are other options. But at the moment, this build service is hooked directly to GitHub. There are other ways to do builds in GitLab and in other systems, and we may look at that in a future video if there's some requirement for that. Okay, so as there's a requirement for this code to be in GitHub, I need to put it in GitHub. And so somewhere here I've got a, there we go, there's my GitHub repository. So this presumes you've got a GitHub account. If not, you need to sign up to GitHub. And all I'm going to do is create a new repository. So a new repository, and you may already have your code in GitHub. I'm just doing this because my code is not currently in GitHub. So I'm going to call it Word Salad Snap. Now, the name of the repository doesn't have to match the name of the Snap. That doesn't matter. It's consistent if you have something in here that that vaguely matches, and you'll notice from my YAML it's called Word Salad, but I called the repository Word Salad Snap. Awesome password generator. Now, I'm not going to do anything other than use most of the defaults and then untick this. Well, can I untick that one? No, I can't. Okay, that's default on. Okay, we'll ignore the Travis bit. We'll cover that in a later video. So I'm just going to create an empty repository in GitHub. And then what I'm going to do is basically follow the instructions. So if you're not a massive fan of Git, then it tells you exactly what to do. Let's come off my Pi and go back to my Word Salad directory. And it tells me what to do on that page. Basically, I just do git init to make this a Git repo, and then I do git add the files. So I'll git add Word Salad and the Snapcraft YAML, and then git commit, first commit. There we go. And then I need to git remote add origin, yada yada yada. And then finally git push. And what that'll do is ask me for my GitHub password, which I need to go and find from somewhere. Bear with me one moment. Just checking this is not on the screen. Right, so in theory I should be able to... Good, that's not echoed to the screen. Right, close that. Right, so that's now pushed my word salad application and the Snapcraft YAML to GitHub. And if we go to GitHub now and refresh the screen, there we are. So we've now got a Git repository that contains word salad, my shell script, and my Snapcraft YAML. There we go. Everything's cool. Once you've got your repository on GitHub and you have a Snapcraft YAML in there, this is the key part, you have to have a Snapcraft YAML in there, you can then hook it up to the build service. So to do that, you just go to Snapcraft.io and you click on build, and then you click this little green button. Now, I'm already logged in to the build service. You can see my name is at the top here. If you're not already logged in, then when you hit this button, you'll have to go through the GitHub sign-in dance and authorize this website to access your GitHub repositories. And that will allow build service to monitor your GitHub repositories for changes and then build them and then push them to the store. It won't hoover up all of your Git repositories. It will only pick the ones that you tell it to. Okay, and I'll show you that dialog in just a minute. So if I hit set up in minutes, what it's going to do is, because I'm already signed in, it shows me a list of all my repositories. Now, because I am responsible for a large number of snaps, this list is way larger than a normal person's would be. Like, there's a lot of snaps in this list. I use the build service for a lot of builds. So yeah, there's a lot of them in there. However, yours will be empty, and all you have to do is hit the add repos button. And what you're doing here is you're telling the build service which of the GitHub repos you want to connect to. And somewhere down here, there will be, what did we call it? Word salad, that was it, right down the bottom. It takes a little while to load because I have so many. Now you can scroll through, or you can just type it up here. Look, if I just type word, there we go, it finds it. So if all I have to then do is just tick the one I want and then hit add. And when I hit add, it's going to hook build up to GitHub, hopefully. Yes. And then it appears in this list, and it'll appear somewhere there in the middle. So now build knows that I've got a Git repo that's got a Snapcraft YAML in it that I want to build. Okay. Which is great, but what I also need to do is register the name. Now, I already registered word salad, and we know that because somewhere here there's word salad in the store. We already did that last time. I did Snapcraft register word salad, but the build service doesn't know that I own the word salad name in the store. And so what it's asking me to do here is to sign into the Snap store to prove that I own the word salad Snap name, because we don't want anyone to just be able to build word salad or Firefox or whatever random Snap names and just push their own to the store. So it has to check that I own that Snap, and that's why it's asking me to sign in. And at this point, it should. There we go. Now I was already signed in to the store, so that's why it just went through that screen pretty quickly. And somewhere here, where is word salad? There it is. Oh, it didn't work. Let's try that again. Okay, so now it's signed in. It says, is this the name? It's detected that from the YAML. Remember, over here in the YAML, Snapcraft YAML, the name says word salad. So it picked that up from there and says, okay, you want to register that name. And if the name wasn't already registered, I can register it here. But I know I already own that name. So in theory, doing this, it should just detect that there we go, registered successfully. Now, as soon as it knows that I own that application name, it'll start building. And so straight away, I'm going to get builds starting, and they're going to get pushed to the store. So let me just recap what we did there. I had some code. I created a repository on GitHub. I pushed the code to GitHub, and then I go to build.snapcraft.io, connect build to GitHub, sign into the store to prove I own the name, and then once I prove I own the name, it can then trigger a build. Getting quite a lot of comments in here about my voice being low. I don't know. I don't know why my voice is low. Sorry about that. So, somewhere up here we go. This is what you get if you click through. Sorry, let me just show you. Technical difficulties with my voice. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, if I click through in progress, you can see here, what you get is at the top of the screen, you get the latest build. And then if there are any previous builds, they come below this line. And you can see here, it's now building in progress for all of these architectures. So this will farm off those builds, and they're actually done behind the scenes in Launchpad. Launchpad has a build service, and these builds are all happening on machines in that build service. I'll give you a sneaky look bit under the covers. If you go to launchpad.net/builders, you can see all those build servers and what they're currently doing. Now, this is actually quite useful. And the reason why it's quite useful is it's quite interesting to look down the list and see what's being built, but also this bit over here on the right-hand side is worth looking at, because sometimes you can trigger a build and it will say in progress. And you might think, why is this taking so long? Why is it sitting in progress for such a long time? And the reason is because you're not the only person using these builders. These builders are also used by Ubuntu and also by loads of other people building snaps that are automating their snaps, the build of their snaps. And so sometimes you get a little queue, especially around busy times of the development cycle. Sometimes this queue can be a little bit long. But the good news is our queue is completely empty. And so if we go back to the build service and refresh this screen, it should dynamically update. But is it actually building? If I click through, there we go. It is actually building. Started a few minutes ago. Now, the interesting thing about this snap is it builds so fast that actually the standing up of the machine, the clean machine that it builds in, and then the tearing down afterwards takes way more time than the snap actually takes to build. If I had a much bigger, larger build, then this would be more realistic. But because my snap is like one shell script and it's 4 kilobytes, then it's not really as representative. You'll notice here the PowerPC one says building soon, and if we go back to the Launchpad builders, you can see there's a bit of a queue. And so there's one job in the queue. That's probably me in the queue. And so that's why you see sometimes it will say building soon if there's a long queue, and other times it will say in progress. Now, once this finishes, those builds will get pushed directly to the store. So remember the part where I had to sign into the store and it had to check whether I'd registered the name? Well, that was so that the build service has the rights to push the snap into the store under my name. And very soon it should do that. I'm surprised it's taking this long. It shouldn't really take this long. I wonder if we can see it in the list here. Oh, look, there it is. Look, there, on that machine there, wherever that is in the data center somewhere, is building a snap package of word salad. So there you go. There's probably another one somewhere else. Oh, look, there we go. That one's building the MD64 build. Oh, there's another i386 build there as well. I'm monopolizing all the builders, possibly. There's the ARM builders. There we go. Now this is all kind of under the covers stuff. Looking at this screen, it's it's interesting, but this is usually the way you would see whether things are building or not is in here. And hopefully, when this finishes building, at some point, we should see them arrive in the store. Now, what you'll see when they finish building is if you go to the Releases tab in the store, you'll see them appear down here. Ah, looks like some of them have appeared. Have they finished while I've been chatting? built, releasing soon. Okay, so that's the next status. So they go from building soon, waiting for a builder, to in progress, they're actually being compiled on a machine somewhere in a data center, to built and releasing soon. And what that means is it goes into the store, and then there's some checks done on the snap, and then it's released to the edge channel. So there's some sanity checks to make sure that the snap is a sane build. And if we go back to, I don't know why it's building multiple times, that's a bit strange. There we go. So now we have, remember earlier I only had an AMD 64 build in the stable channel. Now I've got a new AMD 64 build and an i386 build and an S390X build. Bring out your S390. You can generate passwords with word salad. So there's a few things to note here. Notice the revision number is 2, and I mentioned this last week. The revision number just goes up and up and up. As you push new versions to the store, or as the build service pushes new versions to the store, the revision number just climbs. And so for snaps that have had lots and lots of builds, that revision number can be very high. It can be in the thousands, especially if the project is super active. But mine is not very active, so I've only got a few builds. And if I refresh this, now, what I would do at this point is, go and find some friendly person with an i386 machine, ask them to install this snap from the edge channel, which they could do with snap install word salad -- edge, and they could try that snap out. I mean, it's likely going to work. It's just a shell script, right? But, we don't want to take it for granted. We should do some QA. They could do the QA and then tell me if it works, and then I could push it to the stable channel. We can assume that's been done on all of these architectures. I've phoned up my friend who's got an S390X, and I can say, hey, can you test this? And they can say, yeah, I'll test that. And they snap install it and then tell me that it works. And what I can do is take all of these builds and promote them to the stable channel at once. So if I hit this promote button here, that takes all of the builds that are so far in the edge channel, and I can choose where I want to promote them. So I can say promote those to stable. Now, it hasn't actually done it yet. It just updates the screen to show you what the world will look like if you do that. So what the world will look like is revision 2 will be replaced with revision 7, and then revision 6 and revision 4 will be released to the stable channel. If I hit apply, it will actually do it. There we go. So now it's released those into the stable channel. If we go and have a look at the store page, oops, where's the store page? One of these. There we go. And refresh this screen, it might be a bit of caching going on, so it might take a little minute for it to show up here. But what we should see is there is a build in the edge channel, and there's a build in the stable channel, and over here under architectures, multiple architectures appear. Previously, I only had an AMD 64 build. Now I have multiple architectures. Hooray! I have automated builds working. If I go back to the store and refresh again, you might find, yeah, now all the builds for the other architectures have finished building. And if we go back to the build service and refresh the screen, we might see some of these are now green. Further down here, there might be, yeah, built and released. So there's already been some that have been built and they've been released to the store. I don't think the store even knows why these were built again. I assume that's a bug in the build service as to why it's building these a second time. But I'm fine with that. So yeah, now we've got builds in the store for multiple architectures, and I can go through, and once I've tested each of these, I can promote them. In fact, I can test one of them on my Raspberry Pi. So remember, I had a Raspberry Pi that was on some IP address, right? And if I do snap info word salad. Now, I installed word salad directly on this machine earlier, on this Raspberry Pi, the one that I built on the Pi. And so you'll notice the installed version is X1. X1 means that the package isn't the revision that came from the store, it's a revision that I installed manually. And so I've got a couple of options. I can remove that, one that I built locally, and install the one from the store, or I can refresh and get the one from the store in one line. So I could either do snap remove word salad and then snap install word salad /edge like that. I could do that, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is snap refresh word salad, get it from the edge store, and amend the details, because I'm now no longer using a locally installed application. I'm using one from the store, and so it needs to go and figure out all the permissions that this snap has from the store, and that's what amend is for, to say I'm now changing from a locally installed thing to a store installed thing. Okay, so I've now installed from the edge channel, and if I do snap info word salad, sure enough, the installed version is revision 12, and if we go back to the web, you can see revision 12 is indeed the ARMHF revision, so revision 12 in there. And I can test it out. If I do snap run word salad, it'll generate me a password. So it works. I've done my QA, so I could just go back to the store and highlight that one and promote that to the stable channel. So you can just promote one, or you can promote lots of them. Interesting. What if I don't want to do that one? I don't want to do that one. It assumes you want them all. I could do that and say, I've only tested ARMHF, and so I'll only promote that one. So you've got the option to like promote them en masse or promote them individually should you want to. Pretty cool. Let's promote all of those. Stable. And it updates the ones that I unchecked. There we go. So I've now got word salad available for lots of architectures. Now, that's great. Let's recap. I've pushed it to the GitHub, hooked it up through build. It's automatically built whatever was in GitHub and pushed it directly to the edge channel. I can then use this store page to manage the release of my application. What happens if somebody changes the application? I'm glad you asked. So there's a couple of ways I could do this. I could either modify code on my machine and then push it up to GitHub, or I could just directly edit it in GitHub using the web editor. And what I want to show you is that by editing the code here, it will trigger another build. Now let's just go back to the build service and just see if there are any builds in flight. Okay, so these are all nearly finished. It's only the ARM64 one that's in progress. That'll finish soon. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my code. I'm just going to do a simple change. All I'm going to do is change the characters. So let's support an additional character. Let's support question marks in passwords. And if we change this one, it'll make it slightly longer. Yeah, something like that. That might work. And I'm just going to commit directly to master. Now, what I'm going to do is commit these changes, which is a change to my code, which I could do either here in the web or offline, or I could use some front end to Git and push it to the GitHub. As soon as I commit those changes, it's going to trigger another build in the build service. So if I come over here now, there we go. It's immediately triggered a build of my application for all those architectures. And you can see the build trigger is commit. Someone made a commit to the project, and as a result, the build service will trigger builds across all of those architectures, which is pretty cool, I think. And this will take a little while. And once it finishes, we'll get new revisions in the store, which you'll see in here. And I could test those and promote them again across all of the architectures. I think that's pretty cool. It'll take a little while for those to build. I think once it's finished building, I think the commit trigger actually turns into, instead of being the word commit, I think it actually turns into the git tag that was used, so that you could click through and reference exactly which change was done in GitHub. I'm not sure if it does it when you commit directly to master. Maybe I'm wrong. But that might turn into a link, I think. But we will see. Okay. So, what did I have on my agenda? I had, remember how to build locally. Yeah, run Snapcraft. Build on Raspberry Pi. Worth noting how I got that Raspberry Pi working. I actually used an image from here. So that Raspberry Pi image that I'm running here is actually an Ubuntu server image, just a normal standard Ubuntu server, but built for the Raspberry Pi. And I downloaded one of these images. I think I downloaded this one here, that one there, because it's a Pi 3. So I grabbed this image here and then just followed the instructions down here in order to stick it on an SD card, just so that I could do that demo. I just wanted to show you where I got it, because you might wonder how I had Ubuntu on my Raspberry Pi. That's how. I mentioned using destructive mode, and destructive mode is useful in this example where I'm building on that Raspberry Pi where there's no multipath support. There are other ways we could do that, and I'll cover those in a later video. I mentioned when you shouldn't do destructive mode, and that is when it's quite fraught, and the specifics are quite detailed, but basically if you're on anything other than Ubuntu 16.04 or 18.04, don't use destructive mode. And you probably don't want to use destructive mode anyway, because you might have libraries or PPAs on your system, and you might be pulling things into the Snap that might not work on a generic other system. So destructive mode is really useful for CI systems where you're building a throwaway container, where the container gets stood up at the start of the build. Destructive mode is run, so it's built in that container. No additional nested VMs or additional containers are needed, and then it's blown away at the end. That's really where this is mostly used. You could also build in a VM, such as VirtualBox. So you could spin a VirtualBox VM up running Ubuntu 16.04 or 18.04, and you could do destructive mode inside one of those in order to build inside a machine. Maybe you're not running Ubuntu on your host, maybe you're running on a Mac or Windows or some other Linux distribution. You could spin up Ubuntu in a VM, and as an alternative, you could build in that. And then finally, the ultimate goal is put the code in GitHub and then let the build service build it for you. Then you don't have to. We do this a lot. Like for Snapcrafters, you may notice in the store there's a bunch of snaps that are owned by Snapcrafters, and pretty much all of those are in a GitHub repo called Snapcrafters, and they're all hooked up through the build service. So whenever we want to push a new version of something, we just trigger a manual build or make a change to the repository, and a new build goes to the store. So worth noting, a button I didn't mention earlier in the build service down here, you see this little build manually button down the bottom. That's grayed out because there's a build running right now, and it doesn't want you to DDoS the build server by just going bam 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 on the build button. So it's grayed out for the moment, and if there were no builds running for this snap right now, I could just press that button to trigger a build. In fact, I can show you that button. If I go to one of my other repositories, so let's take this one. So you can see here, there's no builds for this particular snap running, and so there is a build manually button. And if I wanted to build, I could do. Now, another thing that's worth noting is you'll notice here the build trigger is dependency change. If something changes, I'm not entirely sure what the criteria is, but if something changes that the parts of the snap reference, so not the Snapcraft YAML, but if something part references, I think it's another Git repo, one level deep, then build will detect that and will trigger a build for you. So it's not just if your repository that contains your YAML changes, but I think if one part, and I think one of my colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong, I think if that YAML points to another GitHub repo and that GitHub repo changes, you get a build, but that only happens once a day. So something has changed that this snap references, and so this one got a daily build a couple of days ago, which is pretty cool. So let me go back and where were we? We were on bird salad. So it's nearly finished now, but some of them are finished, and I can also point to this part here. you can see I mentioned earlier where it tells you the build trigger is the commit, and it tells you the commit. If I click on that, it takes you straight to the GitHub commit that was the change that triggered the build. So that's quite useful. So you can see why the build was triggered. And if I go to the releases tab again and refresh, you should see I've got some more new builds down the bottom. Awesome. So I think that's everything I had on my agenda to cover. Are there any additional questions I haven't covered? I know Martin has been feverishly answering questions in the chat. There's one there from Jay Herman. Jay's asking, can you build in LXD on a Raspberry Pi? It is possible. You can build inside LXD, and we do still do some builds inside LXD. I haven't really covered that over the last few weeks. I've been trying to show the way we recommend to build things these days, which is with multi-pass and automated builds using build.snapcraft.io. But it's possible we might talk about LXD in the next episode or the one after, simply because some of that code is being rewritten. And so I didn't want to demo it while it's being rewritten and have parameters change and the explanation of how you do it change while I'm making these videos. So I've kind of held off from talking about LXD. But yes, it is possible to build inside LXD, and that's something we will cover in a later video. I think that's reasonable. Okay, so I think I've covered everything that was on the agenda. We've got builds buzzing away in the build service, and that's all working fine. Anything else I needed to talk about? I think that was everything. If there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap up at that point, because we covered all the topics that I wanted to cover this week, which was how do we build for other architectures and how do we build remotely. If you get any questions and or anything doesn't make sense, just ask questions in the comments below, or as I mentioned previously, jump over to the Snapcraft forum, which is forum.snapcraft.io. We also hang out on IRC. You'll find us in #Snapcraft on Freenode. Yeah, you're welcome to ask us questions and ping us with, snaps that don't work or YAMLs that you're working on that you need help with. Ping us on the forums, and we're happy to help you debug these things. So I hope that was useful. And things will be a bit different next week because I will be traveling, and so I won't be around to do this sort of time slot. So there will probably be either probably a pre-recorded video next week, but I won't let you know what the content will be, partly because I'm not entirely sure. But we'll make a pre-recorded video for next Wednesday, and look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks everyone for watching, and I appreciate all the comments, and thanks to my colleagues Claudio and Martin for answering everyone's questions. Thanks for joining us. See you again next time. Bye bye.